All right. Good morning. Good morning. Today we are having a conversation about the truth about homelessness again. And so it's been a series that we have been holding over for the past 4 weeks now. And so today I have some really, really special guests with us that are experts in specific areas, and serve the community in some really, really profound ways. So, what we wanted to do is we're going to dive into the conversation. And I want us first to introduce all of our guests. And so, after we introduce our guests, then I'm going to just give us some framework around why we're having this important conversation and why we've been doing this series and highlighting it. And then we're going to just dive all the way in. So before we do anything else, I'm gonna turn it over to Tama. My name is Tony McNeil. I'm a community organizer. I work with Faith in the Valley. I've been organizing for about 6 years now in the community, and I specialize in the areas of housing, insecurity, homelessness, and restorative justice work. And so I'm a native of Stockton, been here all the days of my life. So I've got 52 good long years of experience when it comes to a thing called Stockton. So I'm tagging you in, Tama.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tama Brisbane. I am the executive director of With Our Words. We are a nonprofit here in Stockton since 2003, working with youth, young adults, old and young, using the art form of spoken word and slam poetry. I am the county coordinator for California Poets in the Schools, one of the largest writing residency programs in the country. And I am also Stockton's Poet Laureate. I am serving my fourth and final term, taking poetry to this city and elevating this city's poetic and creative voice around the state, around the country, and recently around the world. I've been in Stockton since 2001. I'm not native, but you can't drag me out of here. So that's kind of how we roll. I would love to begin turning this important meeting over to this panel of experts, people who go deep in this, not just from personal experience, but because they've chosen this path to make a difference in the world and make a difference in our city. So we're going to start with Mr. 209. Anthony, tell us who you are and why you're here.
Thank you. Grand Rising, Anthony Robinson Jr., Aboriginal, native Stocktonian, for show, Mr. 209, Executive Director of the Echo Chamber, as well as the Echo Chamber podcast, as well as consultant for Transformative Consulting in Stockton. Proud founder and collaborator with the Conrad Evan Haynes of the We Can Project in Stockton, supporting unsheltered homeless ambassadors, as well as folks in Stockton until housing is a human right and housing justice is a have for everyone. Appreciate being in the space.
Well, welcome. I'm looking forward to getting all of the information and all of the calls to action that I know are going to come from you and everybody else. Let's go forward to Leisha. Leisha, tell us who you are and why you're here.
Okay, so my name is Licia Harrison. I am not a native Stocktonian, but I have lived here for 29 years. And I am a licensed clinical social worker. I work in actually three different capacities here in Stockton. I work as a mental health clinician. I work as a medical social worker. And I am the executive director of Be Smooth Inc., which is my own small nonprofit, and focusing on mental health, mental well-being for our community. And I'm excited to be a guest on this panel today.
Thank you, Licia. And I just want to take a moment to lift up the extraordinary life and accomplishments of Brandon. I had the best fights with him when we went to the All City in Denver. That was a young man who knew who he was, what he wanted to do, what he didn't want to do.
Yes.
But once he made up that mind, his imprint is going to be felt for generations. So it really is an honor to have you here with us.
Thank you.
Let's go to Simone. Simone, tell us who you are and why you're here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Simone Reyes. I'm the Executive Director of the San Joaquin Pride Center. We provide not only resources, education, and outreach to the LGBT community, but we also provide training to the broad community on how to deal and manage those of us in the LGBT community, as well as counseling services for those within the LGBT community. Thank you guys for having me, and I look forward to this conversation.
Thank you, because you represent a population that is probably one of the most severely impacted and one whose voice is consistently muted. So I'm really glad to have you on the panel. And bringing up the last spot, but probably one of our most important spots, because none of this happens unless we can't make progress unless we can make policy. And to have policy makers in place that are sensitive to this subject and its impact and aware and ready to roll up their shirt sleeves and get to work, it doesn't happen unless we have people like Kimberly. So Kimberly, tell us who you are and why you're here.
Good morning, Stockton. My name is Kimberly Wormsley. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I actually have my own private practice in downtown Stockton. I am a Stockton native. And, you know, hey, I think that with my career, it was all about turning pain into power. As someone who has experienced trauma directly head on, as well as living in a community that has been plagued with trauma historically and intentionally and by design. And so my work as a policy influencer, rather it's being a mom, being a survivor, or you know, having space and opportunity to influence policy through not only my story, but our story as survivors. And so I'm very excited to be on this panel to speak truth to power about the implications of being unsheltered and trauma in particular, as well as getting into a deeper discussion about the ACEs and how that impacts community members and resident members of this great city of Stockton. Thank you, Mama T.
So I'm going to first let me introduce Issa, which is my yes. Everyone say hi, Issa. I am unapologetically a granny and unapologetically a mom. And I just hate it when people feel like they have to apologize and say, you know, oh, I'm so sorry for my child and forgive the noise in the background. So I'm not going to do any of that because, yes, children should be seen and heard and make noise and all of that. Today, the conversation that we're going to be having is our opportunity to actually educate the community around the impact that homelessness and housing insecurity is truly having with families and children and loved ones. The other thing that we want to make sure that we're lifting up in this space is this is not a quick and easy fix, is it, y'all? No. Okay. So when we see some of our, you know, officials and different people in different places really spinning all of their wheels trying to figure it out, it's because this is not a quick and easy fix. There is a lot that is going on in this. So we wanted to do due diligence to not only raise awareness on some of the stories, but we wanted to also bring in folks that are credentialed, certified, licensed individuals that work with people that are experiencing housing insecurity and homelessness in order to really help us to know that there needs to be some real deep work taking place. So one of the things that we talked about, the first thing I guess is, so the truth about homelessness, we've had stories that we've raised up, all of that, but I think that what I want to go to first is, Anthony, you said there a point in time count. The last count I think that we had, first of all, what's the point in time count? Somebody, just so that we can make sure we're clear on that. What is the point in time count?
Point in time count was a contracted effort, city effort, county resources to come together to be able to count the homeless, assuming for the wraparound services and the ability to bring them resources or to provide resources. Like anything beyond that, I don't have too much deep dive information on concerning the point in time, but the initial intent of that project was that.
I think that when we're also trying to create indicators and data, we need numbers, and so the point of count was also an opportunity for elected officials to get a sense of what's happening on the ground with our unsheltered community. Now, what's interesting about that now is that we are still using data from 2019 because that was the last year we could conduct this, point of time contact because of COVID. And so realistically, I think it's we have to be real about what's going on too when we're talking about this data, because it is data that was used in 2019. And we all know we're living in a different era with COVID-19 and now the Delta variant, which has really intensified and amplified where we are as a city. So I just kind of wanted to elevate that because it's important that the viewers understand what's happening with the point of contact.
Can I raise a quick question here? Probably for Kimberly and Anthony. Language means the world to me, and how we use words really frames how we think and act about a thing. And I'm seeing more and more use of the word unsheltered, which to me feels like a civic and semantic pillow to take away from the impact of the word homeless, because homeless hits harder than unsheltered. And I'm seeing it more in legislative circles. And so I'm seeing we're using the word homelessness, interchangeable with unsheltered. Housing insecurity, I get, because that encompasses more types of instability. But why this rise of the word unsheltered?
Okay, I'll take a stab at it. For me, in the work we were doing with the echo chamber and just the boots on the ground, I felt that homelessness, and we had many conversations regarding it, but it kind of lost its value by being just overused or just misused, right? When it talked about, I'm homeless, right? But I have shelter, right? Homeless in the sense that I don't own a home, right? So I wanted to differentiate that experience with the reality, right? When we talk about homelessness, it's like most of us are homeless, whether you're renting or if you're renting, you don't own a home, so you're homeless as well, right? But we don't put it in that literal sense. So I wanted to use a term that delineated the exact reality. We need folks right now that are unsheltered. There's a more sense of urgency because they're actually living outside. There's no shelter to protect them. They can develop. So when I use the word unsheltered, it's to bring that experience to, and also that reality. That, right, is a difference between being unsheltered and homeless, right? Homeless is like a different experience that you can kind of gauge and also still navigate and kind of eke out. You can be homeless and still go to school, go to work. And that's what I'm doing, right? But unsheltered, very challenging, very different experience, very difficult to do a lot of those wraparound services and kind of get your life on that right track.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of end the shared language by saying that it's such a complicated issue, and there's multi-systems that impact this big overarching issue. And what's so interesting about this issue, and I don't think that we talk about enough, is that we're not talking. So we're doing this point of time count for unsheltered communities. However, when are we going to start really, taking a deeper dive on multi-families who are dwelling in single family housing? Because the rent is too dang high. And there are families, multiple families, who are now coming together to try to tackle the rent, because the rent inflation is just extremely overwhelming. But no one is talking or counting them. In fact, and I'm really good with I'm not good with the data, you all, because I'm this brilliant person, but it's such a fascinating topic where 67% of those who live in the South Stockton Promise Zone, which is anything from Harding Way on down, 67% are multifamilies who are living in single dwelling homes. And that is something we're not talking about enough. And that is very problematic, because when we're talking about housing security, who are we talking about? I think that needs to be more defined, because there are not enough homes that are affordable and within range of people who are struggling the most.
Thank you both.
Big facts. And I just want to comment real quick, because I'm living, actually dwelling in that area of Pearl Valley of Stockton. So definitely big facts. We're not even talking about like the homeless folks that are actually in shelters or in homes, right? Because of that complexity. So appreciate the councilwoman for that.
And I'm glad, Kim, I'm telling you, I'm so glad that you lifted that up, because one of the things that I experienced personally, so with it, my children said that we were homeless for about 2 years. For me, to be honest with you, the trauma imprint only lasted for me for about a year. I don't remember. And as Tom and I have been going through this series, it's been a really deep emotional. It's been very emotional. I have really peeled back, like scars on things that I never had the opportunity to even talk about. So I only remember a year. But my children let me know that we were homeless for 2 years. And they remember it very clearly and very, very well. So part of that, I will not share this platform with you. So part of that experience, though, was centered around couch surfing, living with people, my children and I sleeping on floors and pallets, or what have you. That's not unsheltered. So we weren't counted. We would not have been counted in a point in time count, because we were not homeless. We were not unsheltered technically. And so yeah, I'm really glad that you lifted that up. I want to, and Licia and Simone, I want you guys to just jump in. Simone, I know that you've had experience in this when it comes to homelessness and being unsheltered. So, hop in.
Yeah, that's correct. I happened to live with my sister for 2 years. The house I was living in was sold, and so I've never had, I've always been fortunate enough to be able to provide for myself, if you will. So I never thought not being able to find a home or a place to live would be something I would encounter. But for 2 years, it took a pandemic for me to find a place. But I lived with my sister on her couch for the first 6 months, and then my niece went off to college, and so I took the bedroom. But yeah, I lived with my sister for 2 years, and it was nothing more than just what I call gentrification. The rent was rising. There was so much need, so much demand, and not enough spaces for us locals, the residents, that have been here for all our lives, to find. The between the rise of the rent and the competition, we were just always pushed out of the way, to be honest with you. Someone from the Bay Area or whatnot would always kind of offer to pay a little more to get that spot, to secure it. And so that was something. And I was just telling Tony, I just secured this place about a year ago. I've only been in my own place again for about a year. Now, within that year, I was also dealing with becoming a director and other things that were going on in my professional life. So, sometimes as individuals, and looking at me, I don't think anyone would have really known that I was struggling with that on the outside. But, it affects us all, whether we're unsheltered and living, with no means, or those of us that have been fortunate enough to, just really been working and be able to provide, and still struggling to find that. So I have friends that are currently unsheltered and living in their cars, living in parks because they don't have a place or don't have the means to get to a place. So it affects us all. And you're right, Tony. 40, I believe it's 40 up to 48% of the youth on the street identifies LGBT youth. And a lot of that is because unacceptance from parents and families. So we are not only dealing with, my community is not only dealing with job insecurities, home insecurities due to just financial issues, but then we're also struggling with being put out because of who we are. And so that just adds even more to their struggles and their traumas and triggers. But
Alicia, what is it that you're seeing out there?
So I'm seeing kind of a variety of things. So, I work with, as a medical social worker, I'm working with a lot of the elderly. So, it's one of those, I have one of those stories where thankfully, after 6 long months, one of my 80-plus-year-old clients who's been currently living in one of the local shelters, but had been in a hotel. It's been a real struggle in trying to assist him with housing, because he's 80 plus years old and filling out, applications. He's not able to do that. There's, some visual impairment, so we can't really see what we're writing, or we don't remember, or we don't know how to navigate the systems to get the information that we need. For the housing voucher, he doesn't have the Social Security card. He needs to get bank statements. How's he get to these places at 80 plus years old, and he doesn't have transportation, and he's living in a shelter, and at one time was living at one of the local motels? And I'm just one person that has, had the opportunity to work with him consistently for 6 months. And literally on Thursday of this week, his housing was finally approved. So hallelujah, praise God for that. But, it's taken a real toll on not only his physical health, but his mental well-being. He calls me sometimes almost daily, and it just really is heartbreaking to me, because he's not the only client that I have that is over 80 years old living in one of our local shelters right now that needs housing. And when you don't have family support and you don't have transportation, then how is it that we expect the elders in our community to navigate all these systems and get the necessary documentation and get the applications completed and signed and turned in? I just feel like, not that I feel like, I know we are not doing enough, and it's really frustrating to me, because there's this segment of our community that feels like, there's so many resources. All you have to do is just go get them if you want help. And, they overgeneralize, and I find it to be, what I want to say is ignorant, but I will say uninformed way of looking at things. And then the flip side, I work as a mental health clinician. And so the population that I deal with in that job is, all ages, but working, directly with those that are mentally ill. We have a lot of substance abuse issues. I think that people forget that if you have a severe mental illness, it affects your ability to move and operate in the world. So telling somebody to go down to this organization or this agency and do this, this, and this is something that they truly are not always capable of doing. And we don't have enough people, to handhold and walk people through what it is that they need to do. And so homelessness, it's so complex because there's not just one cause, and there is no solution that's one size fits all to fit things. And we just don't have contrary to what people want to believe, we just do not have the resources here in San Joaquin County to address the needs of the mental health needs of our homeless population or our population at large. We don't have the substance abuse treatment programs, facilities to meet the needs of those that have addiction problems. So, where I see that we have all this money, I'm not sure where the money's going or how it's being utilized, but I'm not sure what needs to be done. I mean, I have my own ideas, but I think it's really important just for the community at large to get a better understanding of what's available in this county and how the level of difficulty there is in accessing some of these services.
Tony had to drop for a minute. I'm going to take over for a bit. Lelena Brigham, thank you for joining us and welcome. Could you take a minute to tell the audience who you are and why you're here?
Absolutely. Oh, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate the invite, and I appreciate being on such a terrific panel to discuss this very distressing issue, especially during a time of COVID. I'm a teacher with Stockton Unified. I've been teaching, this is my 30th year with the district, all at one school, Hazelton School, one of the schools closest to Stockton's homeless shelter, and therefore oftentimes, thank you, Kimberly, we have anywhere between 10 and 12% of our population of 800 kids is either homeless or housing insecure on any day of the year, all the time. During the pandemic, that was absolutely distressing because we were in touch with our families by phone. Most of my kids had my personal phone number because we didn't know what was happening with our kids. We couldn't see them with they all had their devices, but when children don't have homes, they can't charge those devices. So they would have to get to McDonald's, or mom would take her children into Starbucks to try to charge her kids' devices so they could go to school. These are the things that our children struggled with. And only when our school opened up for the final month of school last year did some of the kids who had been missing in action, literally, get to come to school and interact. And they were at school. They wanted to be there. They wanted to have that anchor. School is an anchor for so many of our children, so many of our families. So that's part of my experience, just watching what happens when children are housing insecure with their education. It's just really hard to focus on school when you're living in the backseat of a car.
Yeah. So real quick, I want to go down that path for just a second with you and talk about impacts and how that manifests in children's behaviors, the impact of being unsheltered, being housing insecure, being actually homeless. What are you seeing in that elementary and middle school population?
So a lot of people would think that it would result in children acting out. What I've seen is mostly children just showing a lot of depression, sadness, pulling away, not being willing to interact. They don't have a trust for adults. They're not sure whether those adults are going to take care of their needs. They won't talk to you. You might have to just really pull and tug and build relationships with children in a way that allows them to trust you, to let you know that their mom just died a week ago, which is one of what my students just told me about a week ago. I don't know if it was COVID. Now she's housing insecure, 12 years old, oldest daughter in the family. Some of our kids like you guys were mentioning earlier, and I thank you guys for your testimony. So many of our kids are living with other families, and they don't know who's going to come in the door, so they don't trust grown-ups. They just don't trust us. They don't know if they, and then the part where if they tell me that they're housing insecure, or that they're struggling with fear of abuse, or that they're not sure what the families that they're living with, traffic of human beings coming in and out the door is going to do to them, that they might make things worse for their family, because I might tell, because sometimes I have to, I'm a mandated reporter. And so they are caught a lot of times between a rock and a hard place. It's absolutely devastating to a kid. I teach middle school, 7th and 8th grade up until this year. Now I'm teaching 7th only. And this is just consistent that they can't focus on school. There's school, they do their best, and kids are amazingly resilient. I will say that. They're amazingly resilient. They'll do what they can. Kids inherently know what's the right thing to do, and what they think they should do, and what they want to do. But sometimes they're just so much layered on top of what we consider daily life, just walking in and out of our daily life. They're only, they're just babies, and they're carrying such a weight. You can see the weight on them as they walk in the door. You can see it. We've only been in school for 3 weeks. I have a child who ran away twice this past week. Just too much. It's just too much for them. It's overwhelming.
Yeah, overwhelming is definitely the word. I'm hearing a thread across each of your areas of expertise, and that is, we need help. We are overwhelmed. If I could just ask each one of you, because we've got people in our listening audience who might be feeling the same kind of helplessness on what can we do. And Alicia, when you were talking about just the need to fill out applications, there has to be a way for each of you to get help from community members in your individual or organizational endeavors. So, Anthony, is there something that the community at large can do to help the echo chamber specifically?
It's a few things. One of the most direct things I would say, I think I put in and shared. I don't know when Tony's going to use her magic to put in it, but the 10 for 10 players, because what we're realizing, right? We're doing this work unfunded, unbudgeted, right? With one grant, nominal fee for $5,000, right? And the fortunate thing, I think that we've been able to lead by example for Stocktonians or folks that's really paying attention to it. You can make progress, right, with the little bit of nothing, or what folks would consider nothing. But the real value that we've seen was in the people, right? There's things that folks have right now that we're in our homes, in homes, that folks that are unsheltered needs. How many extra charges do we have in our homes? How many extra charging cable cords do we have that for us seems to just be a nuisance or an extra thing that's lying around? How many cords? So when you build a relationship with the folks in the encampments, you start finding out that there's things that we walk over daily in our houses that we can just pack up in a box, take out there, and they can use, and it has a different value for them. We're talking about children having to go to Starbucks and McDonald's, right? Just to charge phones for schools. And the parents, like, imagine that, right? Our ambassadors having to go to the warehouse and finding any socket. And that creates a certain contention, because certain business owners and patrons are kind of looking at it with this obscure, like, hey, why are you not fully diving in, understanding, like, without a house, how do you charge your appliances, right? So I would say look in to that, even if you say, well, we don't want to necessarily donate to the echo check, fine and dandy, but there's something that you can do. Go pass out some water, right? Go forth, have a conversation, right? Because even that mental well-being, to let folks know, one of the biggest things that we're experiencing with our ambassadors and unsheltered folks is just this invisibleness, right? When you look at a homeless person and you have that thing where you that disgust, that whether it be subconscious or conscious, they feel that, right? They feel the impact of that. So the biggest thing that they're really asking for, beyond shelter, beyond resources, beyond that, is a relationship to be human again, right? Because there's a certain dehumanizing aspect that we've been doing as we walk around this city and we're looking down on folks. Yeah, folks look disheveled. They're living outside in the environment, sometimes for 2, 3, 5, 10 plus years. How would you look if you sitting there having to build a tent outside? So let's be clear about that and just afford folks more humanity. If the least you can do is offer somebody a glass of water or a bottle of water, do that, right? I think one of the things right now that we've come to in just the work that we've been able to, this issue cannot be afforded waiting on a politician to fix it, waiting on a city council. No, the people is going to fix the issue, right? Period. We strongly believe and feel that the least that we can do is enough, and it is a start. So I would encourage folks to start there.
Yeah, acknowledgement, simple human acknowledgement, eye contact, the things that you think don't have value in your own environment really do increase in value for someone who doesn't have an environment. So thank you for that. Licia, what can the community do immediately that would be of help to you?
So of help to me would just really be some demonstrations of compassion. I see that, I don't know how many of you are on Nextdoor, but we have a lot of folks that care a whole lot about, their animals. And I would like for them to use that same level of energy and compassion towards the actual human beings in this community. What can you do if you have time? I mean, you don't always have to, it doesn't always have to be money. Time is one of the most valuable resources we have. And if you could just lend yourself to get involved in the community, to see everybody has talent, everybody has a skill, something that they can do to contribute, but just be very intentional in contributing to helping our community members. I mean, I think we could accomplish a lot if we would just do that. I mean, if you just only have an hour a week to go do something for someone else, do that, And I mean, that's what I think we need to do. That would be a great help.
Thank you.
I
So
want
I'm going to put this out there to the parents of high schoolers in our audience. So many of them have community service hours that they have to fill. Here are 1, 2, 3 organizations that could benefit from your investment, your child's investment in community service. You've got Team Echo Chamber, you've got Be Smooth Foundation, you've got the Pride Center, you've got With Our Words. There are so many organizations that are trying to chip away at this hugely complex boulder of an issue. And your child's 5 to 10 hours could make a huge difference. Simone, what kinds of things can go ahead, Tony.
Before we get to Simone, there was something, the reason I went off camera, you guys, is because I was desperately fishing for a video. I found the video, it got sent to me, thank you, God. And prayerfully, my technology will allow for it to be played and heard. If not, I'm going to drop the link in the conversation chat for others to be able to see it. I'm going to attempt to share this video. Hopefully, like I said, we'll be able to hear it because I have been having some technical difficulties. This video is of Mr. Claude Bailey. Mr. Claude Bailey is a gentleman that I had the esteemed honor and privilege of meeting and working with. He was over 70 years old. He had been homeless for approximately, he was homeless for over a year, about a year and a half total. But when he crossed my path, he had been homeless for 10 months, sleeping in his car. 70. He had lived in apartment complex for over 12 years, consistently, faithfully paid his rent. They did everything that they could in order to accommodate him when the unit that he was living in became a subsidized unit. And because of past conviction records and history, he was unable to qualify for federal HUD. And because of that, Kim, I see you shaking your head already because, yeah, Licia, you know, Lelena, I see you nodding. Okay, so we're all on the same page. Because of that, this gentleman who over 30 years ago made some mistakes and paid his time and did everything that he could, that record could not be erased, Anthony. And so he ended up being displaced on Social Security at older than 70, which meant that in a day and a time during 2019, he couldn't find a place to live. He couldn't find a home. And because he was a senior, he needed all that help Licia was talking about with getting applications and things filled out. And friends found him. Friends invited him to Thanksgiving and found out that he had lost so much weight because he was afraid to use the bathroom. Just there was so much that was going on with this gentleman. Mr. Bailey, before I say that, I'm going to see if we can share his video. So I have it queued up and ready to share. And it's just a moment of time, but it was such an honor working with and being able to spend time with Mr. Bailey.
I had been living in my apartment for over 20 years. And then I come to find I paid my rent on time. I wasn't on drugs, alcohol, any of that. I was a model senior citizen for a ministry in the church. And all of a sudden I was told to fill out some papers, Section 8 papers. And I filled them out. Then later on I found out you don't qualify. So they gave me November the 12th to move out. I was hurt. I applied. I moved out. And then I found a room. I moved in there. I was mistreated. This lady, she had cameras all over the place, little burglar alarms and all of that. So I finally moved out. I said, it's better for me to stay in my car. So I moved in my car and I stayed in my car for about 10 months. It was a nightmare. Every time I tried to sleep at night, police or security guards would come by and say, hey, you got to move, you can't sleep here. And I would move. And sometimes I would see thugs in the cars would pull up behind me and they'd be whispering to one another about, and then I see them get out of the car. Then I say, oh, I better get out of here. Sometimes I'd be trying to sleep, and next thing I know, I hear somebody pop one of my hubcaps off. Or else somebody trying to open the door while I'm trying to sleep. And so I had to keep moving. And not only that, I was afraid to eat. I lost a lot of weight because where could I use the restroom? The businesses wouldn't even allow me to use them. They say, you got to pay in order to use the restroom. And then I would go to the porta potty, and guess what? They were filthy. They wasn't even fit for a dog to use. And so I have kept moving. And I said, Lord, you got to help me. I can't do this alone. And so as I continue to, and then not only that, what really hurt me, at least I had a car to sleep in. When I saw elderly Black women, Mexican women, white women sleeping in cardboard boxes. And these are senior citizens who had families, who worked hard, who raised their families, who helped build this country, who have paid taxes and all of that, out on the streets and told, you can't stay here. You got to move. And not only that, guess what? Sometimes the garbage man or whatever, they would come by and just take the little cardboard houses and pick them up and carry them on the way. and they was left out there in the cold. I said, oh God, help us. If this is what the society has come to, Lord help us. And so I continue to move. But I said, one thing, I'm not going to lose my self-esteem. I'm somebody. There's somebody. And I want the kids to know, or the families to know, this could happen to anybody, not just me. It's just, life is like a wheel. One day you're on top, and the wheel turn, guess what? It's hitting the dust. So any one of us can have this experience. And so what I'm saying right now is, have a heart, do the right thing. Look out for the citizens. Look out for these people who have built this country, who have paid taxes, who have raised their children. And guess what? The children, most of them, a lot of children have rejected them. God have mercy upon us. And so what I'm saying today, I lived in fear. I never knew where I was going to go. I never knew what I was going to do. I couldn't relax because I had to stay on the move. You can't stay here. The light, flash the light in my face. Oh God. And this is what this society has come to. And so I make a plea to you right now. Do the right thing. Care for the senior citizens. They have built this country. They have paid taxes. They raised their families. And the society is known by how they treat the elderly, the senior citizens. It'll go down in history. So this is all I want to say is, do the right thing. Help us. Because guess what? We pay our taxes. We're willing to pay our taxes. We're willing to be law-abiding. We're willing to help each other. Now, help us. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Can I just throw this out there just as some food for thought that I think sometimes people don't think about is, our elderly population, they are on a fixed income. So how is it, they can't afford to pay market rate rent. If they don't make 3 times the amount of the rent, they can't qualify for that. And, it's heartbreaking to me that there just really are so many of our elders out there that just don't have the help and assistance that they need to navigate these systems so that they can be in adequate housing.
I want to make sure too, Lelena, I think that you were going to come off of mute right before she speaks. I wanted to make sure that that those that watch this and have the opportunity to know, we rallied around and did all that we could to support Mr. Bailey. And 3 months after we got him in a hotel and got him in a program, Mr. Bailey died of natural causes.
Wow.
During COVID. And I had the opportunity to, just experience that, what it was like to have a loved one transition during COVID with no one there. His family at that point, and he has family, became the individuals that assisted him from being homeless, unhoused, unsheltered. We still never got him permanent housing, but at least God saw fit to make sure Mr. Bailey did not die alone in his car. So I lift that video up because his plea was, have a heart, do something that is right. Like Licia said, these are our seniors. They have helped build this country. and they don't deserve to be out there living in boxes and in the situations that they are living in today. Lelena?
Well, that whole story really touched me. My father is 83, and he lives in the Bay Area, but basically we do his paperwork, my sister and myself, and his wife in San Francisco. They live in the Bay. This is the thing. If we weren't doing their paperwork, it would be very easy for my father to be living outside. If we weren't on top of, and I mentioned this in the private chat earlier, just the confusion of the papers. And they all are, they fight against each other. Medicare, Medi-Cal. If you make too much money, for example, if you get a grant, like some people got that, the stimulus payment, and that kicked them out of some of their health care. Well, you can't have a whole lot of healthcare costs, because if you do, you have to pay that, or you can't be seen by the doctor. You get sicker and sicker. I mean, it's just like a cycle. It's really horrendous, the cycle. Even when you have people helping you, my sister and I are constantly trying to negotiate those papers and the rules of each different organization. When you asked earlier, Sister Tama and Elder Tony too, you guys were talking about what could people do? Find an elder and help them through this process, filling out papers. Be trustworthy, of course, because they're scared of that too. They're scared of who might see their social security number and misuse them, because that's a thing that happens. There are people that are out there taking advantage of seniors, getting their houses by filling out papers and putting their own, there's just a lot going on. It's really frightening for seniors anyway. But then when you're adding this on top of that, and just in the terms of our school district has a list of resources for families that are struggling with home insecurity. However, what we found is that, just like with seniors, negotiating that paperwork and actually at the end of filling out all those papers, having a positive outcome, it's not sure. It doesn't really happen. You get bounced between this agency, that agency. Okay, we tried to help you, but now we can't help you. We actually had a mom a few years back who had 4 children, and she was bounced between agencies. And eventually she ended up really doing some things that were very heinous to her own children, because she felt desperate. Her children lost their lives behind their situation. And some of them were students at my school. So it was really heartbreaking. This whole situation is heartbreaking. And somehow we have to pare down, streamline the paperwork process. That has to happen. That's what I wanted to mention.
If I can lift up,
I just wanted to kick a little eloquent rage right now, because I think that one of the biggest things that our community, this country needs to do is take a step back. And it's really time for us to reevaluate these unmarked, unchecked values that we do not have. And I want to make it clear, because Anthony made a statement about one person being able to pull us out of this. It's really about systems. Now, there is some low-hanging fruit that we all can do. And, we can go out there and we can, provide food and provide water. And I think that since this pandemic, we have seen people come out and be supportive of people. So I don't want to minimize that. However, I want to be honest and real with everyone who's listening, either right now in real time or later on. There are systems that have received millions of dollars. We're talking about $147 million that the Board of Supervisors of San Joaquin County has received in real time right now. We're talking about the city of Stockton that has received $87 million. We are talking about Stockton Unified School District, who has received $144 million in real time for people. Okay? I'm tired of having to work in the emergency department and hear these stories over and over and over again. Lisa just said it. There are people who are 80 years old who are begging for help. They are struggling with a digital divide. There is no broadband. How do you expect people to fill out an application online for services when they don't even have broadband? Or how about areas in this city that you cannot even get on to the internet because of the digital divide? What about the illiteracy rate here? The illiteracy rate is stagnant. It's astronomical. It's astronomical how many people are struggling with even the basic skills of reading and writing. That is real. What is real is, how do we expect our students, Ms. Lena, to even get into your classroom and learn when they don't have access to food, water, shelter? They can't even begin to open up that notebook if they don't even have a pencil. It's time that we are shifting these systems that have been in place for 150 years that are not reflective of people in real time. We have people who get out of the correctional, the criminal justice system and aren't even given a license, a social security number, or even a guidebook of how to get to anywhere. There is no supervision. There is no case managers. There aren't any navigations. But yet, when I look at these dollars, there's what is this, like $350 million in this city? And we have people who, there should not be anyone who is starving. So these are systems that continue to go unchecked. These are systems that are not accountable. These are systems that we all on this call, we all who are watching, must hold accountable to the people. And until we do that, we're going to continue to be responsible for things that are just, they're too heavy. The lift is too heavy for one agency or one being to carry. And we must hold systems accountable. The systemic racism that has placated the system, we have to overturn that. And that's going to take showing up. That's going to take having real uncomfortable conversations that isn't, I think that they're being had. I think they're not being had enough. And when we're leaving out of that conversation, what's the next steps here? So that's what I'm looking for, is holding these systems accountable, because I'm sick and tired of being tired. And I just have to kick that elegant rage. Please forgive me, Miss Tony. I love you.
We need that at this point now. And Elena, I want you to expound on what you just put in the chat. At this point now, I'm glad you call it eloquent rage. I'm battling with tears right now because it's righteous indignation. I am so sick. I'm sick in my body. To have me fill out, when I was homeless because I was going through domestic violence. I was traumatized already. Trauma sent me into homelessness. My children were abused. I was abused. And at that point, I didn't even know to spell my middle name was good. Counseling, please. You want me to fill out paperwork. And what's really crazy to me, I need to fill out paperwork. I need to navigate systems at the welfare office. I don't know what window to go to. I don't know who does what. So I'm standing in a line with 1 billion people and my 4 children homeless while I'm trying to take time off for work, homeless, in order to save up money, homeless, so that I can get a house, homeless, trying to get back to the place that I need to be in at a time check, homeless, so that I don't lose my placement, homeless. I get to there, and then I got to go to another place. Then I got to another place. All of these systems, guess what? They're interconnected and interrelated. We're putting millions and millions and millions of dollars into systems. I got people making 6 figures, Kim, in order to make solutions, 6-figure salaries. to make solutions. I need y'all to take some of those 6 figures and put them into systems. How about building some type of a technical system to where I can fill out my paperwork in one place and everybody have access to it all? Why in the world should I have to go to here and there and there and there when all of you know that this is a connected system? Righteous indignation, I promise you, at this point, up to here. Up to here. Lelena, you were saying that the children, what were you saying?
Just our school district has received our school district has so much money. We just lack leadership or the will to push for clarity in how people can access all of these programs and the things that kids. We have never had a superintendent yet that has cared about what's happening to our kids. And I say to our kids, and I'll say with our kids. And we haven't had that. I'm sorry. We've had so many superintendents. We've had our choice. We just haven't had one that's been there consistently that cares about what happens to these children and their families. So the assumption seems to be that if you're homeless, there's something wrong with you.
Right.
And we say that again.
Yeah.
Homelessness, unsheltered, housing instability is not a character flaw.
Right. But see the belief in the heart though. So every year we talk to our teachers on our staff about what they really believe about whether children can learn and what what children come to school. And we find consistently, this was the first year we did see something different, but we consistently found there were teachers who operate on a deficit model. They believe there's something wrong with them. That's why they can't learn. No, there's something wrong with our systems. Thank you, Miss Wormsley, for putting that out there, because that is really what I have on my little notes over here. But that's really the basis of why I agreed to come on today. Because if we don't shed some light on the fact that our systems are they're not effective, they're not efficient, they don't work together in tandem, they don't communicate, they don't confer with one another. We don't have a overarching system. Tony, you were talking about having a one-stop shop. That doesn't exist anywhere. And so people are running from pillar to post. Oh, you did that program and you can't do ours because you were in that program. Okay, you're in that program. Okay, you can have a smaller amount of funds from this program. It's just really so confusing. I wouldn't be able to negotiate it. I have a master's degree. I'm sorry, it's just confusing.
Thank you for saying that, because I think that people in our community just really think that this is just so easy. If you need help with this, then just go there and the services are, available and just ready for you. I'm wondering, what is the navigation center going to look like at St. Mary's? Do people, we have to understand, people that are moving from place to place to place, belongings get lost, important documents get lost, things get stolen. So, people need an ID. That costs money. That should be free, right? We got all these millions of dollars. So for people who don't have an income or low income or homeless, getting an ID should be free.
But it's not.
Just like the basic stuff. You're going to need a social security card. If you're trying to apply for benefits, you need these items. Applying for housing, you need these items. We need to we have to do something about the background, right? Because that eliminates people from being able to be eligible for subsidized and low income housing. So we keep putting people outside of the box of eligibility for programs. And then we make the application for becoming eligible so very difficult. And I just want to remind people, it's already been said, but I'm going to say it again, about the low literacy rate in San Joaquin County. Let's bring that into the conversation. So once again, how do you expect people to fill out all these very complicated documents? It's not easy. Filling out the Medi-Cal application, I mean, they're trying to streamline it, but you need to provide all this stuff to go with it. How do you get to that stuff? You don't have a computer. You can't just download your bank statements. You know, it's a challenge to get to the bank to go get the bank statements. Nobody thinks about all these things. You know, you have children. Children, what do they need? They need safety, stability, security, right? If you don't know where you're going to sleep, and as you said, you don't know who's coming through the door, how am I supposed to function? They're being robbed of their childhoods. They cannot even just be children enjoying their lives. They have to worry about, how am I, you know, are my clothes going to get washed? You know, I'm going to school in dirty clothes. You know, my clothes smell. My shoes are too small. You know, how am I going to get to, you know?
Wait, let me add to this. Let me add to this, because on top of that, then you have CPS and the teachers that are mandated reporters. And so Lelena has no choice but to report these things as a lack of care. There's a category that it falls in. It just escapes me. Neglect, you know, or what have you. And so she has no choice but to report these things when it's a consistent pattern, you know, within the children. And so then you've got other entities that now have to get involved when it comes to this matter.
Which makes people afraid to ask for help.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I just want to lift up something real quick. That and thank you, Councilwoman Kim. Like, I thought I was revolutionary. I was holding back. But when you came with this, I'm like, oh yeah, we here now. We here now. It's not an accident, right? This is an intentionality of the system, of the corporate structure that is going on, where we have artificial structures that are allowing human beings to be displaced, to be mistreated, to be out of the way while the paperwork's finished, right? So like, we do need a challenge to the system. And that's why when we started to work with the echo chamber, the two things we realized quickly in the homeless, unsheltered work, we began to realize that the city and all parties and all factors involved were just managing homelessness, right? So what managing homeless looks like, we're going to feed them, we're going to clothe them, we're going to do these different things while they're still outside. Give them no pathway to housing, give them no pathway to sustainable, structured shelter where they can be safe and their children can grow. So managing homelessness allowed homelessness to do what? To balloon on us as a population, to where the counts are misused, they're misguided, and they're intentionally put below. I'm telling you right now, because the echo chamber has done the work. We have the data. We have data on top of data. We don't need no more data. There's over 6,000 homeless people in Stockton that you can see on the street, right? Not talking about the multi-families that's living in the house. They're homeless too, right? Because you're going to own a home, you're actually homeless. That's what the definition means. Not talking about the folks couch surfing. Not talking about the folks that property owners have already put the detainers against, right? 3,000 to 5,000 folks ready to get kicked out onto the streets and lose housing, right? 6,000 folks already on the streets that we can see. We have the names, we have for the location, we have the tracking, because we've done the work on the ground to that degree. But I wanted to go back to what the brother Bailey said, right? Because my father, Anthony Robinson Sr., my father, right, going on 70 years old, is actually unsheltered right now. He's the second tent when you enter and you go into St. Mary's at the gate. He's the second tent from the gate when you're entering St. Mary's, right? 70-year-old senior, actually homeless, unsheltered right now as we speak. So one of the things Mr. Bailey lifted up, and there was a question, right? I know folks see me like Mr. 209 was actually crying. I was crying for the city, right? At Stockton, because I'm a true Stocktonian. When Mr. Bailey asked the question, and he said, is this what we have become as a city, as a state, and as a county? Is this what we have become? Displacing seniors, children out there living in the Mormon slough and gutters and ditches. I'm out here last week playing football in the catnip with children, because that was the only piece of like freedom from their situation that they had. We pull up and feeding folks and just playing catch. Like they could be children again, right? They can kind of displace or disassociate from their circumstance of being so weighted down, living under bridges and freeways where they can't even hear and go deaf, right? Where they have to watch and right, because children, we take our cues from parents, right? So we're not even understanding that children are double backing into some feedback loop of vicarious trauma, because they're dealing with trauma in their own situation, and then they're doubly dealing with the trauma as they're taking their cues from their parents. That's reflected on their grandparents' faces. That's reflected on their parents' faces, on their father's face, and that experience, right? And one of the things is we more than enough money, more than enough resources, right? And like I say, folks, systems are just playing. Human beings are sent to the, that's why with the echo chamber, we understood that it was going to be building capacity with the people, right? Because our mission is to eradicate homelessness, not to manage it, right? And another thing I want to lift up, right? Putting people in shelters does not solve for homelessness, because you're actually still homeless in the shelter, right? So while you may have sustainable shelter for a while, and depending on what wraparound services you're getting or not getting, pushing our people and building more shelters does not solve for homelessness.
And it
So
feels
what are we doing?
punitive when you're in the shelter. It's like being punished unless they've changed that system. Being in the shelter and all of the rules and the regulations in which one must adhere to when they are in that shelter, they treat you like you are a problem. They treat you like you are a problem to be solved and not a person and a human being that is dealing with trauma.
Big facts.
And what happens when you're banned from the shelters? Because that's a conversation I had with somebody earlier this morning at work. Can't go to this shelter, can't go to that shelter, can't go to that shelter. I mean, what he finally said is that he would rather just go commit a crime and go to jail so that he would have a roof over his head, because he did not want to have to be sleeping outside. And you know what?
And that,
can I do?
I was going to say, and that's something that's very common within the LGBT community, because not only are they facing the barriers that we face from the bureaucratic side of it all, but it's also the harassment from those within the shelter that don't understand the different identities or the different orientations. And so they're having to go out, and they tell us all the time, it's safer for me to go rob someone and end up in jail and be safe than to have to deal with the shelters. And I'm talking about the shelters locally, the shelters here in this county. So as our LGBT community goes, we don't have very many shelters. That now, I will say St. Mary's come a very long way in the 5 years that I've been at the Pride Center. But even then, we still encounter a lot of misgendering for our trans communities. And so we find a lot of our trans individuals that just refuse to go to any shelters in town. And so us being such a small and now a red county, as I like to call it, we find that a lot of our girls would rather commit a crime to end up either in county or back in prison for some girls, because it's safer, and it is a safe, guaranteed food and shelter for however the duration of their time is.
Whew, y'all. This one. So look, everybody, and I hate, and I'm not saying that I hate to do it, but I have to do it. I hate to do it because I feel like this is a tension, Kim, that as a counselor, as a clinician, Licia as a clinician, as a social worker, Simone as the director of the Pride Center, working in this area, as a confidant, as a mentor, Lelena as an educator, as a mother, as a daughter, you know what I'm saying? Just as a pillar of the community, Anthony, as an advocate, and an organizer, Tama, for you, as an educator, an advocate, a mentor, a mother, someone who was directly impacted, and myself, that we have to sit and hold this tension, that we get to sit and hold this tension. Because as I'm speaking, I feel it all in here, right? We get to sit, we get to hold this tension. And for me, it's always with this foreboding fear that if I exhale, that I'm going to be like those people that don't care. So I'm so afraid to and be okay. I'm so afraid to exercise my own self-care and wellness, right, Kim, in this area, because I don't want to not care. I don't want to just step over that person. I don't want to ignore Mr. Bailey. But this is like so heavy. And the people that are fighting are the people that have been directly impacted, because the ones that drive votes, the ones that determine and they can't hold accountable council members, city council, mayors, elected officials, county board of supervisors, for CARES Act funds and for our ARP funds that are coming in from our federal government, and streamlining into our communities, for the school board, or what have you. They're comfortable. And there has to be a disruption of that comfort in order for them to change. They're the ones that drive the vote. The ones that drive the vote in this city are comfortable, not homeless. And the ones that we're trying to get engaged in order to make a difference are traumatized because they're so busy trying to just stay above water. I'm not going to ask somebody sleeping in Mormon Slough to vote, to show up at city council. Come on now. They just barely. So all that being said, I need us to take a deep breath. I need us to breathe in. So Tama, walk us through a breathing exercise so that we can wrap up.
Before I take a couple of deep breaths, I have to share something that Anthony ignited in me, because I can hear a word and then there's a campaign, but you brought to light something that excuse me, that I didn't think about, and Toya kind of chimed in that she didn't think about, and I'm sure other people didn't think about, and that was that issue about chargers and how many of us have charger cords. And then that just said there's a campaign out there waiting to be organized called Take Charge, where literally people can bring in chargers to the echo chamber and then create ways to give young people, homeless people, unsheltered people at least some sort of lifeline. Because if you have a charger and you have one of these free phones, you can at least go and get plugged in so that you can access something like that. And it doesn't take a whole lot to create a campaign like that, where people can bring in surplus chargers. If there's an organization, and we've already got a council person who's going to say, yes, this is a good idea, we should have this around the city. I want to continue to talk offline about that, because that doesn't take that much to organize. And that is an immediate, how do I connect the dots between, there it is. Thank you. Then we need to start lifting that up. We can. Yes, we can. Thank you.
So one of the things that we will do then, and I like the idea, I like that the term take charge. And so Anthony, one of the things that I commit to do today is to task the concrete team with Take Charge. They will connect and work directly with We Can ambassadors. And the We Can ambassadors are individuals that are in the encampments that are organizing and raising awareness. I have laptops and different things as well. So the concrete team will go ahead and take the torch in regard to that, and partner with you all in raising awareness in regard to Take Charge. And I know that some of them are listening and they hear me now. So have at it.
And we will, over here at With Our Words, we'll commit to creating a promo video for you.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Okay. That was a lot. It's going to continue to be a lot. The first thing to do is just breathe. Like, if we can all just take one huge cleansing breath in through your mouth and out through your nose, and then we're going to reverse it. We're going to go in through our nose and out through our mouth. So first, grab all the air you can with your mouth and just let it out through your nose. We're going to do that one again. Grab all the air you can with your mouth and breathe out through your nose. Now we're going to reverse it. You're going to breathe through your nose and whoosh it out through your mouth. It's going to look like this. And you're going to make a noise. And it's going to sound awkward and a little weird, but do it anyway. Breathe through your nose and whoosh it out through your mouth. Let's go. Like, it needs to be audible. No, it ain't cute. It's not cute, because what we are inhaling isn't cute, and we have to forcibly expel it from our body, and the force has to have a sound connected to it so that we know that we're doing that kind of work too. So one more deep breath through your nose and whoosh it out ugly through your mouth. Here we go. There we go. That's a community ready to take a cleansing breath. Yeah.
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 Oh.
I want to say that, to say that I appreciate you all is an understatement. As a person, as a member of the community, as an organizer, it's an understatement. And I say it on behalf of a whole lot of folks, because at the end of the day, when I get a call as an organizer, people think, oh, you're amazing. And what they don't know is I have this amazing Rolodex of people. I do. Kim, you are right now, I'm telling you, sis, you're doing an absolutely remarkable job. And I am so proud. Look, let me do this. I'm going to remove my Faith in the Valley band, logo even, for a second. I am, because I want to tell you that you are doing an amazing job representing our district. I'm saying that from a personal place as Tony. I'm so proud of the work that you are doing and how you fiercely show up for us. Yeah. Lalena,
Don't make me do the ugly cry. Thank you so much.
Show up. You show up.
I appreciate all you guys.
Lalena, oh, sis. Whew. And you do a whole lot. You do a whole lot already, but I'm telling you, ma'am, the wisdom and the experience in which you bring into a space, the advocacy that you have, and you are fearless. You are unapologetically fearless. You are not afraid to speak truth to power. Oh, I wish there were more like you.
We have to do it. If we don't do it, who will? And I appreciate you inviting me into this space. I appreciate the people on this panel, all of you, speaking your truth, because there are people who absolutely can't, and we have to speak for them.
Simone, now you already know you my ride or die. So, we just sharing queen crowns. I absolutely love you and respect you. And oh my God, the things that you carry in the advocacy, but just from such a sincere, tender, and pure heart. It's amazing. And so what I want to do is just, make space. Licia, I would ugly cry talking about you. Because the fact that you still show up. Damn. You keep showing up.
Yeah, well, I am part of this community, and I feel that every member of this community deserves to be sheltered indoors if that's where they want to be. I don't think that anybody should be outside and not having a space of their own with all of the resources and the money that are in the United States, let alone in this county. And, I'm a big advocate for, people need to have peace and harmony in their lives. And so our mental well-being is especially important and something that needs to be prioritized in this community. And then we need to just focus individually as community members on, let's try just being good human beings.
That part right there. So what I want to do is take this last 5 minutes that we have, and for you all, Simone, what if you just had, what do you want people to take away from the truth about homelessness?
I think it's important to recognize that homelessness affects everyone, no matter your standing, no matter where you are in life. At any point in time, it can change instantly. And we too can be where we see those individuals, whether they're on the streets or bouncing from house to house to be. I think it's important to show compassion and to just see them. I think that's what a lot of our homeless individuals and family members want, is just to be seen. I know we have a tendency of walking past to avoid the unsightliness or whatever the case may be, whatever that draws within us. But, take a moment, acknowledge them, look at them in the eyes, say hi, ask them how they're doing, offer them a meal or drink, or even just a kind gesture can go a long way. For me, I think that's the one thing that I try to do on a day-to-day basis, and try to instill those, not only in those around me, but even in my staff. We deal with a lot of homeless individuals in the area we're in now, and a lot of them are not LGBT, but some of them are. And so I just tell them, acknowledge them, treat them as you would anyone else. Don't make it a point to keep it off because they may be a little unclean or unkept. Treat them like you would anyone else. And that for me is important. I think as an individual, I make it a point to be able to see the humanity in everyone, no matter what situation we're in. I think that's important.
Kim?
My final thoughts and takeaway is we all, as people, are one check away from being homeless. And the stories and the testimonies in this community is real, and so we need to always keep that in our minds. I lost my job. I had COVID twice, but thank God I had some resources. Thank God, because I was on that train. And it was out of control, and I really want to elevate and talk, just briefly, just state what Lisa was saying about our seniors is real. My father served this country full combat, deployed, Vietnam, Desert Storm. He was there. And when he came back, the systems, he wasn't even able to tap in to the very same system he served honorably. And to this day at 68, guess what? If the government called, he would answer that call. And he was deprived. And the story of Mr. Bailey just resonated in my heart. But there are so many Mr. Baileys. There are so many Mr. Warmslays that are out there. And so we need to be conscious about what we see and how we prejudge people, because everybody has a story. So be kind, be humble, and take the necessary steps to upset these systems that were designed to not include everyone.
Anthony.
I would say this: homelessness is the biggest civil rights issue that we're not talking about. Period. Especially as the state for California. Like I say, California being the fifth largest economies in the world, California should not have a right. Now it's the third. I figured it rose in ranking. California being the third largest economy in the world, meaning that California as a state has a larger economy in certain continents, especially the continent of Africa, right? Should not have a homelessness problem. Period. Doesn't have a right to have a homelessness problem. You're inordinately wealthy as a state, but have the audacity, right, to have folks sleeping outside and not being able to afford shelter, veterans that serve the country, shelter, taxpayers and citizens that done everything law abiding, shelter. Okay, I mean, prisons having better programs than shelters. The homelessness issue is the biggest civil rights issue that we are facing in our time, right? So those of us that are on the ground, that are trying to rebirth our civility in some way, our civic engagement in some way, our humanity in some way, because what the issue is really allowing us to see, especially as a city, it's allowing us to see how we practice our humanity or how we don't practice it, right? And just admittingly, we've been at a good practice in our humanity in the city. We're in bad practice, actually, in our humanity as the city of Stockton. And me being a Stocktonian, being Mr. 209, I can say that, right? The city is should be ashamed of itself, period, point blank. How it's doing this homeless issue and how it's allowed the issue to balloon on itself. The state of California, beyond shame, right? Look clearly on that. But speaking as a Stocktonian, specifically in Stockton and San Joaquin County, in the greater San Joaquin County, right? San Joaquin County being the breadbasket, feeds over 30% of the nation, right? But has a homeless issue, right? Over 6,000 residents in Stockton being homeless, and that's not even counting the county. We're talking about the city of Stockton alone. Listen, beyond the talking, like, we just have to really wake up as a populace, as a people, and understand who's coming to this table to play about this issue, who's coming to this table to make sure that they get funding on this issue, who's coming to this table to make sure that, they get a building named after them on this issue, or a street sign named after this issue, or maybe get a park named after them on this issue, who's coming to the table with real intentionality to eradicate the issue, and who's coming to the table with real intentionality to continue to manage the issue, because they're getting paid to talk about the issue while folks are sleeping outside and having to live outside. So that's what I want to lift up. Homelessness is the biggest civil rights issue that we are facing in our time. We're either going to wake up and face it, or we're going to allow it to continue to roll over our lives and be trying to marginalize and try to connect these other issues that are dealing. We need to stay focused and eradicate homelessness. And managing it won't do. And shelters are not a solution to homelessness. Period. Point blank.
Look, y'all, so y'all messing me up. When we go into these spaces, I'm gonna need y'all to just come on with me, so that I could just step back, and y'all speak to power. Lelena, did you share some final words?
Not yet, but I do have some, and I thank you for again inviting me, Kim. The fact that your dad was not able to use the system he protected as a soldier to, take care of himself was purposeful. It was designed for exclusion, and the locks need to be taken off. We need to do that now. Simone, you said what I wanted to say. Our homeless are not invisible. We need to see them. And then, Tama, you have helped thousands of young people not be invisible by giving them voice. And I thank you for that, because that's key. The fact that Brandon was able to go out and speak to the world was largely because he spent time with you. And we need to put a light on this thing. Our children cannot be invisible to us. We need to see them. So those are my final thoughts.
Yeah. Ms. Tama?
As someone who has been part of this experience, been homeless, from hotels to rooms to couches, all the while serving this city, its schools, its youth, and every single demographic that we have in silence. I know the importance of breaking it. We do so much when we say break the silence when it comes to domestic violence. But there is a civic violence that takes place when we have so many aspects of our community that are homeless. And we have to break that silence. And we have to do it from the top down, like Kimberly is doing it. But then we have to do it from the bottom up, like everybody else who's on these front lines are doing. And from the top down and bottom up, we can squash this thing in the middle. But that requires exercising our voice and putting aside pride or ego or fear and saying this thing is happening because it happened to me. It happened to my sister Tony. It happened to my sister Simone. It is happening to Anthony's father right now as we are speaking. And so I can provide platforms and microphones, but we all got voices. We all have voices. There is always going to be a forum and an opportunity to raise our voice and come through with our fact, our experience, connect those dots, and voices get listened to. Soloists are great, but choirs, you can't ignore a choir. So we become a choir. You know, we come here together and we have choir practice. And we figure out how we are going to continue to sing this song, because those of us who are believers know what happened when they marched around the city 7 times and opened up their mouth and walls fell. We got walls to break through. We got walls to break down. We got walls to tumble. I am so honored to be in the company of such dedicated soldiers. Every time that I think that I am tired, this refreshes me and replenishes me and gives me 2 more plates to juggle. I got 12 that I'm juggling. I'm good for 14. And so y'all give me that 13th and 14th plate, and I thank you for that.
Licia, did you get to share?
I just have 2 things. One is a statistic, and that is that 27% of the homeless population for the United States is in California. So,
Wow.
and that's
Say that again.
27% of the homeless population for the United States is in California. That came from pacificresearch.org. So I didn't make that up. That is a huge number, just to put some perspective on what it is we're dealing with. And then the second thing is I'm going to just take a note from my son, who said that it's not about changing systems, it's about dismantling systems. So we need to not just disrupt, but dismantle some of these systems, because we need to just start over.
That was Brandon.
That was Brandon. Dismantle the systems.
It's Brandon's last name.
Harrison.
Just making sure I get it right. I'm gonna do a quote. I want to make sure I got the quote right.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So you all, for me, my final comment would be this. I believe that housing is a basic human right. Everyone has a right to have a home. We have enough land. We have enough resources. We have enough space to ensure that everyone who wants a home has a home. We're operating from a place of greed, capitalism. So it just seems like it's just okay. But at this point, your greed for this society is starting to show itself. You're seeing the fruit and the manifestation of it. I am a Christian. I'm a believer. I believe that God sees and knows all. And I believe that sometimes you would want to really be careful, because for those that cannot fight for themselves and speak for themselves, there is a God that sees them and will speak for them. And my concern would be that for those that are in their six-figure income and their comfortable homes, that sit in these positions, are making these decisions on where these resources that are being sent, that are supposed to be to the people, and getting bottlenecked in your systems, where you are hiring your friends, your allies, and putting them in other positions, but not necessarily getting those resources to the people they were designed for. You have to be careful of that, because one day you would be in a tent in Mormon Slough. That could be you. And you would want someone to actually make sure that the resources that our federal government sent for you got to you. That part. So my prayer is that you would take some time out and that you would really do what is right by the people. You need to do what's right by the people. And the last thing I want to say is, for those of you that vote, those of you that that drive the decisions, that you vote for your the city council people that are in your districts, the NIMBYs, not in my backyard. I want you to solve the homeless problem, but I don't want them I don't want to see them. You fix it. You do it. You guys are putting too much of a burden on elected officials to make decisions that you actually are the ones that should be making. So you're telling people like Councilmember Wormsley, well, okay, now we're going to elect you for District 6. You solve the problem. I'm going to go ahead on with my life and do what I need to do. And then target her and or others. I don't care who it is, or others, and task them with the burden, but you don't want to be a part of the process. That day is over with. So this platform is to help you all have the information that you need. You need to be a part of the process. And if you have elected officials that are part of the problem, then you need to make sure that your part is to correct that. So we got some work to do, you guys. We can't solve this we can't solve it. One person can't solve it, but we all collectively can come up with solutions. Yeah. And so last example, I'm sorry, school district, there was a solution that was put up, a year or so ago, with property that could have been used in order to create actual housing, affordable housing for children and parents within the school district. Guess what? They said, no, we don't want to do that because we're not going to benefit from that. We don't want to just give our property away to be used. And this is property that still is not in use and wasn't in use for many, 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 many years. So it's abandoned property, not in use. And that actually tells us the mindset that we are dealing with, that those are decisions being made from individuals that have not experienced the disparities of displacement. So y'all think about it when you're making these decisions and when you're voting for these folks. Think about what needs to be done. I appreciate you guys for tapping in. I appreciate the panel, you guys, for taking this time out. Enjoy your weekends, you all. We are going to have a town hall that is going to be held in October, where we are bringing community and elected officials and decision makers together. I learned this from Kim back in the day. When the community starts crying out, bring the community together and then ask the elected officials and decision makers to be on a panel and ask them, okay, so what are you going to do? So we're having that kind of good old fashioned back down home in the day town hall surrounding homelessness and housing insecurity. We're not having a study session where you come in and just tell us about a lot of ideas and then tell us, you know, concepts and thoughts, but we don't have any real digging in. A study session, Lelena, right, means that we're going to study and learn some stuff, that we're going to walk away knowing that 1 and 1 makes 2, but you're going to study it to know how it made 2. Well, that's what we are looking for. The community wants to know when we come into a place what the actual plan is. And so this town hall is for us to figure out what's the plan. So yes, I want to make sure you guys know that, keep your eyes open for that, and for the meetings that we will be having with community members. So that being said, enjoy your weekend. Thanks for tapping in. Remember that housing is a basic human right. Anthony, there's something that you always say, navigation before what?
No displacement without navigation. So don't displace unless you got somewhere to get them to that's safe.
Yeah. So yeah, no displacement without navigation. Housing is a basic human right. And remember, there is a truth about homelessness. Most folks don't know. So love y'all. Appreciate y'all for tapping in. Blessings.